ubukungu n'iterambere. Urubyiruko mwe bayobozi b'ejo hazaza muharanire kuwuteza imbere. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
Tuned to Radio Imanzi, broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umugano. The headlines. President Paul Kagame received a U.S. Congressional delegation led by Senator Coons. Some universities have been chastised for admitting students with lower than expected grades, while others enroll in courses in which they have no prior knowledge. The 8th Tokyo International Conference on African Development is said to take place in Tunisia from August 27th to 28th. Welcome back. News in detail. Today at Urugwiro Village, President Paul Kagame received a U.S. Congressional delegation led by Senator Coons. The delegation of 3 senators and 3 Congress representatives are in Rwanda for a 3-day visit to strengthen bilateral relations between Rwanda and the United States. The Rwanda Development Board has said that some 20 baby gorillas will be given names at this year's gorilla naming ceremony, Kwita Izina 2022, next month. This was announced today by Ariela Kajiruka, head of the Conservation and Tourism Department at RDB. So far, 354 baby gorillas have been named since 2005 when the program was introduced. Rwanda could soon start training experts in forensic sciences as the country seeks to become a regional hub in the field. A new bill in the works could turn the Rwanda Forensic Laboratory into a center of excellence capable of training forensic scientists from across Africa. Most of Africa's major training in forensic science, a multidisciplinary field encompassing legal medicine, pathology, microbiology, among other subjects, are offered by South African universities. With a growing demand for experts in forensic sciences on the continent, officials say Rwanda has received requests of training from a number of countries which need experts in the field. Becoming a larger institution has been part of the country's strategic plan, says Dr. Charles Kanangwa, Director General of Rwanda Forensic Laboratories. He said Rwanda have had different African ministers of justice who visited the country and asked to train their citizens in forensic sciences and evidence handling. Dr. Kanangwa said the training will be academic and short-term courses. Some universities have been chastised for admitting students with lower than expected grades, while others enroll in courses in which they have no prior knowledge. These 2 subjects have been identified as central to universities producing graduates who are unfit for the labor market. The issues were raised during a meeting between the Higher Education Council and representatives of higher learning institutions, which was solely focused on improving university education quality. The meeting was held in the aftermath of the Higher Education Council's recent crackdown on private universities, which resulted in some being closed and others having to close some departments. The Director General of the Higher Education Council, Rose Mukankomeje, said that the effective management of higher education institutions is one of the pillars that will ensure the quality of graduates that the country needs to achieve its development goals. Schools, especially higher learning institutions, should not register students who are not qualified in accordance with the guidelines set by the Higher Education Council. She emphasized on the law governing education, saying that it was clear and should be followed to the letter, adding that in the end, this serves the best interest of the learner. The Ministry of Health published data showing a progressive uptake of the second booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. On August 8, 2022, the ministry announced a nationwide campaign to administer a second booster dose starting with high-risk groups, especially adults above 60 years and others with weak immune systems. In 11 days, over 104,704 people received the second booster dose, with the leading districts in the uptake being Nyamagabe, which is over 9,500 people, and Bugesera, which is over 9,000 people. The ministry said in a statement they have quite satisfying participation from the targeted population of 60 years and above, as well as 50 years and above, and patients with non-communicable diseases. While the Rwandan government has established a plan to develop the country's industries in order to increase productivity, economic experts say that the people benefit from the industry's success because the profits are used to build infrastructure. Felix Wimana has more on this report.
According to a report by the National Institute of Statistics, in the first quarter of 2022, GDP at the current market price was estimated to be 3,025 billion Rwandan francs from 2,588 billion Rwandan francs in the quarter of 2021. In this quarter, service sector contributed to 47% of the GDP, agricultural sector contributed to 23% of the GDP, while industry sector contributed to 22% of the GDP, and 80% was attributed to adjustment for taxes and subsidies on products. The service sector of the economy contributed to majority of this output, accounting for 47%, followed by agriculture with 23% and manufacturing with 22%. According to Ndagijimana Joseph, an economics professor at University of Rwanda, industries use primary resources and the people benefit first and foremost from the profit. He also mentioned that industries pay taxes that the government uses to build infrastructure. If industrial output increased, it would benefit people in numerous ways. According to the statistical office, the industry grew by 7% in 2016. Made in Rwanda production is said to have played a significant role in this, as the industries that make clothes, shoes, and the other leather products increased by 10%. The food industry increased by 8%, and the industries that make construction materials increased by 21%. According to 2020 figures, Rwanda has over 800 small and medium-sized industries, including those that are uncommon in the country, such as telephone manufacturers, car assemblers, food manufacturers, and the others. Rwanda has set a goal in the 7-year government plan for National Transformation 1 to have the industrial service contributing to 34% of the government's GDP by 2024. Terix reports.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The Rwanda Stock Exchange Market Report. The trading session recorded its turnover of 1,060,000 Rwandan francs worth of bonds traded in one deal on the fixed income market, while the equities market remained quiet. The equities counters closed with Bralirwa at 165 Rwandan francs, Bank of Kigali at 272 Rwandan francs, I&M Bank at 43 Rwandan francs, Simerwa at 120 Rwandan francs, M10 Rwanda at 177 Rwandan francs, Equity Bank at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket at 104 Rwandan francs, and R8 Buffalo closed the counter at 526 Rwandan francs as the market closed. The currency market review of today. The Kenyan shilling buying price was 8.5 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 8.7 Rwandan francs. Tanzanian shilling buying price was 0.43 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 0.44 Rwandan francs. Ugandan shilling buying price was 0.26 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 0.27 Rwandan francs. Burundian franc buying price was 0.49 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 0.5 Rwandan francs. The US dollar buying price was 1,022 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 1,042 Rwandan francs. The British pound buying price was 1,217 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 1,241 Rwandan francs. The euro buying price was 1,030 Rwandan francs and the selling price was 1,050 Rwandan francs.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
The 8th Tokyo International Conference on African Development is said to take place in Tunis from August 27th to 28th. It is expected to further strengthen relations between Japan and African countries as they are said to discuss how they can create a sustainable world together. The government of Japan has been leading the conference since 1993, co-hosted by the United Nations, UNDP, World Bank, and African Union Commission. The forum is a multilateral forum in which international organizations, partner countries, private companies, join African countries, and civil society organizations involved in development. The conference provides an open forum that generates innovative discussions among various stakeholders on African development. According to Miyashita Tadayuki, Deputy Director General in the Department of African Affairs in Japan Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the conference's format will include plenary sessions and a business forum to be held in person, as well as official side events that will be held online in principle. He said that 54 African countries are expected to attend, as well as representatives from Japan, UNDP, World Bank, and African Union Commission. An Ethiopian airline passenger plane missed its landing and overflew the runway at the Bole International Airport after its two pilots fell asleep. The plane was flying from Khartoum, Sudan to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. According to the aviation publication, the pilot woke up after the autopilot system disconnected, setting off an alarm. They made another approach and landed the plane safely. Data from flight radar shows that the plane failed to start its descent as it approached the airport. The autopilot system kept the aircraft cruising at 37,000 feet. Ethiopian Airlines said the plane temporarily lost communication with Addis Ababa Air Traffic Control, but landed safely after contact was restored. South Africa's ethnic Zulu nation is preparing to host a coronation event for its new traditional king. King Misuzulu Zwelithini, a son of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini, who died in March last year, will on Saturday undergo the traditional ritual known as entering the royal village to mark his installation as the new leader of the Zulu nation. The Zulu ethnic group is South Africa's largest, with more than 12 million people who are mainly located in the coastal province of KwaZulu-Natal. The Zulu nation historically recognized as having waged fierce resistance to British colonialism under King Shaka Zulu from 1816 to 1828. The position of King of the Zulu Nation is an influential one in KwaZulu-Natal province as a custodian of the ethnic group's traditional customs. A daughter of Angola's former president, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, has appealed a Spanish court's decision ordering his body to be released to his widow and returned home for burial. The former president died in Barcelona on July 8th at the age of 79 after suffering a cardiac arrest. Since then, the question of when and where he will be buried has pitted the Angolan government and his widow Ana Paula against one of his adult children. On Tuesday, Barcelona court ordered his remains to be delivered to Ana Paula and granted authorization for the repatriation and international transfer of his remains to Angola. But his daughter filed an appeal arguing the court did not have the jurisdiction to rule on what was essentially a civil matter, court documents showed. The appeal also argues that Dos Santos and Ana Paula were separated since 2017 and did not live in a situation of matrimonial normality. Chide Dos Santos has repeatedly said her father wished to be buried in Barcelona, where he had most lived since stepping down in 2017. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's edition.